I was born with a defect known as ventricular septal defect, which is basically a hole in the ventricles of the heart. We're all born with a hole. It closes within days of being born. Mine didn't. So when I got COVID during the pandemic, it kind of affected my immunity. So then now we're in a space where in 2022, I started feeling not too well. Then come 2023, at the beginning of the year, I was experiencing fever and whatnot. So that defect finally affected me.
Give me the paint, give me the chalk, give me the urban artist talk. Conversations from the heart, from the start we set apart. Art a la carte, now check it.
Are you an artist struggling to sell your artwork? I know the feeling. I've been there, so much so that I decided to publish a book, The Art of Articulation. This book will help you not only navigate the art world, but give you the vocabulary to step into a room with confidence so you can sell your artwork. Pick up this book on Amazon today. All right, this is Andre Jones, aka Natty Rebel, back at you. We're here with a follow-up segment. We have the lovely Mworia joining us just to do a little bit of recapping. We've been talking about Kenya. We had Anita on for a brief minute. We'll have her back. I'm so glad that you guys got a chance to connect.
Yes, excited about that.
Yeah, but how are you doing?
I am well. I had heart surgery in February. I'm recovering. I'm taking it a day at a time. I have to go back to school, continue my journey to medical, school.
I was going to say, you have quite the journey.
Yes.
Like you're here in America studying to be a doctor. What kind of?
Neurosurgeon, that's the goal.
Neurosurgeon.
Yes.
Madness. But then just had heart surgery.
Yes.
How was that?
I was born with a defect known as ventricular septal defect, which is basically a hole in the ventricles of the heart. We're all born with a hole. It closes within days of being born. Mine didn't. So when I got COVID during the pandemic, it kind of affected my immunity. So then now we're in a space where in 2022, I started feeling not too well. Then come 2023, at the beginning of the year, I was experiencing fever and whatnot. So that defect finally affected me because the bacteria festered around the hole. And then it spread to my lungs. I was hospitalized. And then I had to start the whole journey of figuring out where my cardiologist was going to come from, where the surgery was going to happen, all these things that I had to navigate for the past year or so. And finally, in February, I pulled the trigger and I got everything done. And now we're just waiting to see if I will recover, if I will be well, if there will be need for any extra work. But I plan on getting back up and keeping fighting.
Man, where's my cup? Let's drink to that.
I know, that's right.
Man, to life.
To life.
Wow. Man, so did your, for lack of better term, hole in your heart make you want to become a doctor, or where does the inspiration come from?
So I spent my childhood in and out of hospital, and I didn't quite know I had a hole in my heart until the 4th grade. And the only reason I found out was because that was the first time I actually saw a cardiologist. Because I got sick and my mom quite couldn't place it. And one of the doctors I was seeing from the community told her to schedule an appointment with a doctor. And then that's when I learned that I had a defect. I'd been living my whole life wondering why I had issues here and there.
Any feelings?
Yes, palpitations. If we were running, the other kids would be okay in like 2-3 minutes after running. I'd be breathing heavy for like 10 extra minutes, just struggling with air. And I didn't quite understand it until the 4th grade when I was informed of the defect I had. And then I started trying to move accordingly. So I've had a few near-death experiences because of this defect, but now I'm finally in this country where there's enough resources for that to be taken care of. But throughout my life in Kenya, one of the biggest things that was always in my mind is there has to be a better way to take care of sick people than what is available in Kenya. Because if my parents couldn't afford private healthcare, I'd probably be dead by now. So the only reason I know that is in 2010, there was a girl, her name was Malemba, and I'm never going to forget her. She ended up contracting something called pulmonary tuberculosis, and she died because she was from a way poorer family. They lived in the slums and everything, and we went to the same church. A year later, I get the same TB, but because we had the resources to battle that, I ended up leaving. And that sat with me for all these years. the fact that it's money that put us at a differing state of being alive or being dead, it's always motivated me to want to go back home and do something about it. So the goal is to become a neurosurgeon, but I do not intend to work in America per se. I would like to facilitate a revitalization of Kenya's healthcare system. Yeah. Whatever that looks like, it's a challenge I'm willing to take on. And I especially believe that mobile health, that healthcare in Africa should be mobile. Stationary healthcare does not facilitate the cultural norms, neither does it facilitate the state of being that a lot of people have. And it also allows for people to get even more education on how to handle their bodies. Right. So I'm thinking big trucks in every one of the counties that move around, and people are handed flyers with the days that those trucks will be in their neighborhood. That way people can get in the habit of having a primary care provider.
I love it. Yeah. It makes so much sense after just, my most recent trip to Africa, and like I was explaining to someone, I got a flat tire and the repairman came to me, grabbed the tire, took it back to his shop, fixed the tire, brought it back to me. It was such a mobile service that just made sense because you have so many remote areas to where it's like, even if he had a shop, everyone in that community is not going to be able to make it to the shop.
I've spent so many hours queuing in long lines outside major hospitals in either Mombasa or Nairobi, waiting to see a specialist who can only be found in that hospital. So to imagine that even with that, that's around $100 per session. For a common Kenyan, that's not quite affordable. Yeah. So you're having to, first of all, call a Harambe, which is where you raise money, and then you get that money, travel to Nairobi or Mombasa, queue for hours waiting to see this doctor. Sometimes you'd end up going home and having to come back the next day. And when you come back, it's not that they're going to have you cut the line. You repeat the process. Yeah. So I remember many a times my mom would carry me on her back and we would be queuing in line as early as 6 a.m. So we are leaving the suburbs of Nairobi, driving into Kenyatta Hospital to queue for hours to wait to see a cardiologist, who is then so overwhelmed clearly and proceeds to say, "You're pretending, you're fine." Huh. So there's a lot of also policy work that needs to go into how healthcare is facilitated to people. There's very colonial habits that still exist, a devaluing of Black bodies. And I don't think it's on purpose. I just think that the system that was given to us is not serving us.
Yeah, it never was meant to. So until it's totally demolished and reestablished to actually benefit. I mean, there's so many studies that have come up showing that, what you do with melanated people or melanated skin or is different than what the doctors have been trained to do, and that alone is not benefiting us, much less when they even just see us walk into their hospital, the energy and the attitude that shifts.
And I would also like to see more of a dietary and herbal focus into that medicine. Yeah. We have stigmatized our herbalists. We call them witches. We make them feel like they don't belong. When really some of the issues that we experience, the cures are existing around us.
Bring back the herb doctor.
Yes. So I know, for instance, every time you had heat rash in Mombasa because of the heat, we would always soak ourselves in neem tree. We call it mwarubaini in Kiswahili. So
it keeps insects away. It cures the insect
It
bite.
does all of that. Sometimes we just go to the ocean. And the next day you wake up, the rashes are so it's those little herbal methods that if I was to explain to, let's say, somebody in inland Kenya, I'd be looked at in a specific way. There's even a stereotype for people from the coastal region of Kenya and be more aligned with ushirikina, which is the occult. When really what we are practicing still is very much so African,
in tune with nature,
herbal, natural ways of existing.
That's it. Yeah. Bottom line, with the stigma removed, it's just being in tune with nature. When people realize you can't have a medicine, you can't have any of your icy hot rubs without a natural herb as the foundation. Of course, they add all type of synthetic other stuff, but any of the medicine that they use, any of the, it comes from a natural herb plant somewhere that our great-great-grandparents knew all about, but we've lost that, ancestral practice.
You want to hear a funny story?
Talk to me.
So,
what's going on, good people? Andre Mworia here, and as the Executive Director of the Bay Area Mural Program, I want to tell you about Chroma Paint. Chroma is our go-to brand, and we want to make sure it's your go-to brand too. Visit them at their website at chromaonline.com.
So when I was in primary school, I remember I asked our teacher jokingly, I was like, if malaria is such a problem, how did we survive it before white people came? And they told me, oh, the reason that they even discovered the medicine is they were trekking through the Congo, and then they came across the tree that had the quinine in the bark. So they were thirsty, they had a fever, they didn't know what was going on, and they decided to leave the soldier behind. And then the soldier cracked a bark from this tree, scooped some water into it, and was trying to drink it, and then he passed out. And when he woke up later, he didn't have a fever anymore. And he carried that back, and that's how quinine was discovered. I don't know how true that story is, but
Well, I feel like it's rediscoveries because it's, like, I feel like our ancestors knew of these trees,
Yeah.
these barks, these herbs. And then as hospitals and, modern day technology gets introduced, like, even for me, my mother was born at home. But within one generation, they convinced even Black people here in America that a hospital is
It's where to
better
birth.
than you birthing at home in one generation. Because, my mother was having me in a hospital and would not dare even think about having a home birth. So I feel like it's that easy. Within one generation, they can implement a system. Of course, it's billions of dollars that are spent on it.
Yeah.
But it can alter the mind state of a whole generation from their original practices or their traditional practices because it might be too messy or it might be too long. I got to plant my herb garden and wait for it to grow, or I got to go when I can get this, so I feel like we've known but we've forgotten, and it's a time to now where we have to
Like, I don't
recollect.
understand why we birth while laying down. I've always
All of
felt
that.
like squatting.
Squatting makes more sense.
Yeah. So,
But
those are some
if
of
you
the
lay
things-
down, and as
yeah.
my partner, because she's a doula midwife, laying down will cause slower reactions. Now you can pay for a C-section, you can pay for all types of extra medicine. We can, because you're not, following nature and just gravity and
allowing it to happen that way. The more I dig into the way the healthcare system in this country is set up, like the fact that even vibrators, for instance, were invented because they wanted to cure hysteria in women. Yeah, apparently this doctor just decided one day to create a machine that just violated
that is
women.
that's a man's creation,
And
though.
that's how vibrators came to exist. Some
And I could see, I could
or
so see that.
psychiatrist.
Yeah,
I forget his name, but having learned that and then digging deeper into why chainsaws exist and all this stuff, it's a lot of brutality that comes with healthcare and how that impacts us as especially Black people is something that I have experienced firsthand.
All those gynecology tools were instruments created by men to practice initially on Black women before white women were going. Like, these were tools that were just practiced solely on slave women, on indigent servants.
Yeah.
To where, like, and this is still the same medicine, the same practices, same
To this
tools
day.
that we use to this day.
There could be off of shadowing a few doctors, there's definitely some things that could be fixed
A whole lot of
and
things that could be
changed up.
fixed.
And
Even to sit there and watch two
yeah.
over 70-year-old men run and fight and debate for presidency in America without making health care, because both of them are at the doctors at least three times a week, guaranteed, but without making that the primary focus of their debate, lets you know just how bad things are and how much things need to be, corrected and changed. Because, like, that makes no sense to me at all. Like,
It's
no health care for not
Yeah.
even, you don't even want to speak to the over 50, over 60, people in your demographic. You don't even want to speak to them and say that you deserve,
healthcare.
health care, bare minimum as a first world nation. No, you don't want to do that?
No, I feel it's always about money in this country.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
that
too-
notion is so entrenched in the world right now. That's why, like I say, growing up, I really saw the discrepancies in how the people that I went to church or the mosque or existed around, how they got care. Like, somebody would die of a very simple disorder that now, if I look back, I'm like, they could have been saved.
Yeah.
And also the programs that used to educate the Kenyans on various things like, get tested for HIV, do this, do that. They no longer exist right now. So that's why I feel like that version of mobile healthcare accessibility, even if it's education, needs to find its way back.
Yeah.
And this time around, with better funding, better organization, probably putting these clinics on trucks that are huge and just having them gallivant across the nation, just providing accessibility. Because if you can give back dignity to somebody in the way they observe their body, in the way they observe when they're sick and how they want to treat themselves, you facilitate a nation that can then start to even have bigger conversations. So the goal is to bring that dignity back. Because I feel for me, coming here and fighting my way into getting healthcare accessibility and fighting my way into getting this surgery done and getting the care I need, that in itself has wounded me, but empowered me to go back home and fix the situations that are there, because this started there.
Yeah.
That's the reason I had to have the surgery here, because those resources lack back home.
Takes those pressure, those moments of pressure to make diamonds. I'm going to shift the energy a little bit.
Sure.
Studying to be a neurosurgeon. When I think of a neurosurgeon, I can't help, from my perspective, look at that as another form of artistry.
Yes.
Of course, you have to do a lot more studying, because there's, a lot more that can go wrong in the case of, medical practices, as opposed to me just painting on a canvas. But I do like to, draw the comparisons of, just about, problem solving. As artists, we have to problem solve. Whenever I'm trying to draw a portrait of somebody and make it really look like them and highlight their, their attributes that make them them, I have to study them. I have to study the picture. I have to study what I'm, so I really look at, surgery as a art form, So all that's to say, you're an artist.
I feel so, yeah.
Have you ever done any surgical practices? Have you done any?
I've observed.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long?
Done.
Okay.
And in the moment, there was nothing but excitement to just observe the inside of a human body. And I think.
So that didn't deter you?
No, I loved every second of it.
Oh my goodness, we had to go look at cadavers to draw like dead people, and I was like, yeah, that's as far as I want to go. But like, when I think of like some of the greats, like Michelangelo, Da Vinci, like even Da Vinci, most of our medical studies are from Da Vinci's drawings, because he had the stomach and the guts to go and not only draw the outside portrait, but to actually cut open people and draw certain organs and certain.
It's a whole universe.
It's a whole universe in there. I respect it.
The reason I'm drawn to neurosurgery is because my first degree was in clinical psychology.
Okay.
And I did a lot of lab work around neuroscience, right? And I fell in love with the idea of traversing the nerves, traversing the brain, because for one, to just sit down and think that every time you talk, you think, you move, there's electricity running through you.
Yes.
And those channels shape you to be who you are. They store memory, they store this. It's very exciting.
It's fascinating.
So to then have to develop a skill where you can alter that or you can add to it, it's something I'd like to participate in, especially seeing as there's not many Kenyan neurosurgeons that exist in the world. And to come in and add to the conversation that Black body perspective of, not like my grandfather was injured in a fight when he was younger. And he ended up, using a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And looking back, especially when I started reading his medical records, I see that a little bit of physical therapy and a surgery here and there could have helped him walk again. So these are the things that really make me go like, surgery is an art form, because you have to be willing to observe the person and observe the culture and observe their body and how they've always managed to exist before you can decide to cut them open. And again, I myself went through surgery. Those are the conversations we had to have with my doctor to figure out how best to go about the surgery, whether to cut the chest open or go through my thigh. It's fascinating. There's so many ways to enter the body and tweak with it and just like make it function.
Mhm.
It's a gift. And I don't plan on taking that lightly. And I don't plan on cutting everybody open. I plan on being a neurosurgeon who is able to facilitate physical therapy, mental health therapy, because sometimes the things that affect the body neurologically are just mental. You know, my mom had a stroke in 2020 because of the amount of stress and the unaddressed depression that she carried for years. Ended up getting her to the point of a stroke. I had to be the one to pick up the symptoms, actually, to point out, Ma, you might want to get to the hospital tonight. You're having a stroke, on a FaceTime, on WhatsApp.
Wow.
So it's something that really, like, I'm excited to get to, and I'm buying time exploring other artistic ventures, like trying to revitalize my family's business around statues and whatnot
Yes.
that we carve out of stone.
Okay.
And trying to learn again how to handle that stone, because I used to do that as a child, and really like perfecting that ability to concentrate and take time with observing something that I'm creating. I dance also, so every time I'm moving, I try and identify what muscle am I engaging the most and how do I feel afterwards. Do I need to stretch my spine this way more so that I can be able to do this move better? I myself am in physical therapy just so I can learn how to move my muscles and engage the nerves. So I'm doing personal research with myself.
Yeah.
I'm learning also through clinical psychology. That way I'm not the kind of surgeon that just says, let me cut you open.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't need to go inside you. I just need to find somebody else to help me navigate your body.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's a beautiful thing. Wow. So many questions. I know, taking it back to when we first met,
Yeah.
was it around the painting that we were just talking about?
Yes.
The one that is up in the
I
square
reached
building?
out to you
Yes.
after you guys did that mural and I saw it. And I was like, okay, I got to find the person that did this.
Shelby, shout out to Shelby. Shelby did an
Yes.
amazing photo shoot with you all.
Mhm.
And I remember I was looking for images, and the same problem that I had, I was searching on Google. I was like, let me find, Black woman with braids, women wearing hat. Wasn't satisfied. So I was like, I'm short for time.
Yeah.
Let me reach out to a photographer that has what I'm looking for. Reached out to Shelby. Shelby
That's my
was like,
girl.
shout out to Shelby. She's awesome. And she just came through in the clutch. She was like, oh yeah, I just did this photo shoot. These are some of the images. I'll reach out to them and see if it's cool. She reached out. She sent me the photos.
I didn't even know what the plan was. She
Oh,
reached out and I said, sure.
Okay, cool. Yes. There was no real plan. I just know I wanted some beautiful Black images, and I couldn't find them online. So the one that you posed for was probably one of the first ones that I did choose, just because it was very dynamic. The hat, the braids, and we hung it in the Square building, and Square, they loved it as well too.
Yeah.
It is a part of their personal collection now. So you are just loved and adorned all throughout the Bay Area.
That humbles me. It makes me want to go harder. It makes me want to figure out ways to really get my voice out there and really see if what I say makes sense or what I do makes sense. So
Sounds good. Well, we're going to have you back
yes, please.
as soon as possible. Maybe even another collaboration, a part 2 with Anita when she comes
before
back.
she leaves.
Yes.
Because there's more yapping to do about
There's
Africa.
so much more. I feel like it was just so cut short. We need like a good 2 hours to just get it all in.
I promise to be on time this time.
Yes. Excellent. So,
I was late
Mwaria,
today.
it was so good having you. I'm so glad that you could make it.
Thank you.
And let's pose for our photo.
Yes, please.
Give me the paint, give me the chalk, give me the urban artist talk. Give me the paint, give me the chalk, give me the urban artist talk.